Shalom. Welcome to another episode of Inspiration from Zion. I'm Jonathan Feldstein. Today, I'm super excited. I've literally just met today's guest, and I'm excited to get to know her, and I know you will be as well. It's also super timely because Ashlee Bond. I'm actually getting emotional thinking about it, Ashlee. Like you're one of Israel's Olympic athletes. You just finished competing this week, but this year especially, it's not just a novelty to have a cool person who's one of Israel's Olympic athletes speaking, but this year especially in Paris, where we're 10 months into a war here in Israel, and that's impacting all Israelis all around the world, and Jews and Christians all around the world, but also specifically the threats and the accommodations that have need to be made this year for the Israeli Olympic team and even Israeli tourists who are going to cheer on all of our athletes. Ashlee is born in America, like myself. She has an Israeli father, like myself. This has been your second Olympics representing Israel in equestrian competition, which is also unique. And if I'm not mistaken, it's only the second time that Israel has had an equestrian team represented. 3 years ago in Tokyo, and this year in Paris. So Ashlee, there's a lot we're going to unpack and get to know. But really, first of all, thank you for taking the time today, and welcome to Inspiration from Zion.
Thank you for having me, Jonathan. I'm so excited to be here and speak with you about all things, faith and Israel and in between. Yeah, so let's get going.
Let's get going. So you live in the US. You were born in the US. Your father is also Israeli. He was born in Haifa, like my father. Tell us about your father and your own identity here and what made you forget the competition and being part of the Olympic team, wanting to become an Israeli.
Yeah, so my dad, obviously, my Safta immigrated actually from Hungary to fleeing the World War II, and they went to Italy. She met my grandfather there in Italy, had my uncle, and then immigrated to Israel from there and had my father in 53. Um, and then she took my dad when he was 12 and moved to the States. Fast forward, met my mom, and she's, born in Sacramento, California, totally, from European descent, German, Swedish, and Christian. When they had us, my brother's 6 years younger than me. I think with being a Christian, Jesus being born in Israel and his whole life was in Israel. And I think that part of me, it was always a really deep connection. And my dad had become I don't know how you would phrase it, but a messianic Jew, I guess would
Okay.
be a
Okay.
term. He found the Lord on his own when he was in his late 20s, early 30s. Like, he is a real Israeli. Like, his character, he's super strong and passionate and a fighter and the best heart. I like identify with like the Israeli, like that mentality and that fight and for fierceness. I always have. So on top of like Jesus being, the reason that I love Israel so much, I also in my core feel like I just always identified as an Israeli American. I feel like as you fly into Israel, you get this like, I get this like emotional, like feeling of just the presence of the Holy Spirit. It's really incredible. I haven't been in the last 2 years, or I went right before, so it's been 3 years. I went right before the last games. And we would have gone again had obviously the war, it's,
Yes.
everything going on. Um, but yeah, it's just so spiritual for me. Every time
Sure.
I go there, it's overwhelming, actually.
Let me ask you about that because you've already tipped the one of the super unique things about having you here. You are a Christian, and
Yeah.
I'm guessing I didn't research it, but you probably know this. Are you the first and perhaps only Christian who's ever represented Israel in the Olympics?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, I in our sport, I don't know about in in all the sports. I know for sure in our sport because every one of my teammates made Aliyah. Um, I know, but yeah, it would be an interesting thing to see if in every sport for Israel, if I'm the first Christian Israeli. I would hope not, but I maybe.
How did you come to faith? I mean, it's a fascinating story in terms of your parents, but what about you and yourself?
Yeah. I just knew as a young child before I can even remember. I mean, I just had this overwhelming certainty that Jesus was who he said he was and he was my father. My mom also was blessed with that, and we've had like supernatural experiences, each of us actually in our family, which is really, really special. And then my dad came to it on his own. He was in acting class, and Miguel Ferrer actually, he said, "Can I go to church with you?" And my dad was a very angry, had a lot of stuff go on in his childhood that caused a lot of issues. He was an alcoholic and all these things. And um, he's now like sober for over 10 years and it's amazing. But he had asked Miguel if he could go to church with him. And Miguel was like, sure. And I guess when they were there, they asked if anyone wanted to accept the Lord. And he was like, my hand just started to raise. And then he ended up accepting Jesus and he came home and was like, I need to talk to my mom. He's like, I need to talk to you. I don't know how you're going to take this. And she was like, okay. And he's like, well, I went to church today and I accepted Jesus into my heart. And she started crying
Yeah, I'll bet.
and was like, I've been praying for you every day. So sorry.
No, that's good. I
Yeah.
appreciate the
So
emotion and I
it's,
appreciate the honesty. So let me ask you a question.
yeah, but
Using an equestrian metaphor, being a Christian on the Israeli Olympic team, has there been a hurdle for you? You like that?
definitely I felt it, not from my teammates so much, but just, from, well, other aspects, I guess you could say, where in the beginning it was the Jewish team, they would phrase it as, we're riding on the Jewish team. And I always felt like, well, not everyone who's an Israeli is Jewish, and I'm one of the higher ranked riders on the team, and has won a lot for Israel. So I felt a little like a bit of an outcast at times, but I think in the last while, I felt like more embraced and more, not that I wasn't accepted, but more like we just don't talk about that, kind of thing. But now I feel like empowered that I am accepted by the Jewish Israelis that are on my team. And the people that are around our team, and I don't have to be ashamed to share, my faith if called upon to do it. Um, Whereas at the last games, I felt like I wasn't allowed to really do that.
Being on the Olympic team, have you learned about Israelis in general and Jews in specific?
Um, I just feel like everyone's like a family. I feel like there's just this, you're Israeli and you're in. Like, at least from when I've been at the games. The whole Israeli delegation was just so welcoming and warm, and exactly how I know my family in Israel to be, my family that immigrated from Israel to be. Like I said, the mishpucha, because my Savta spoke Yiddish. And so,
Tata, by the way, is grandmother. I was going to say
yeah,
that before,
yeah.
but some people don't know that.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. She passed when I was 13. Um, but sorry. Still, still emotional. She
Yeah,
was she would be really proud. Um, sorry.
she would be. She'd be pinching your
Uh,
cheeks and saying stuff in
I
Yiddish to
know.
you.
I know. I also felt that that was also a reason that I wanted to represent Israel. She loved Israel so much.
Can you point back to a specific time or incident where you actually had that feeling of really feeling like you were Israeli even before you took citizenship?
I think because my Softa was there with me since the day I was born, and she would be over like 3 times a week and pick me up from school. a couple times a week and stuff like that. I just always felt that way. Like
Yeah.
I always felt um that I was Israeli, and I had that in my house,
Yeah.
since the day I was born until I was 13 or 14, she passed. Um, and she was like a really big influence in my life. Yeah.
So now, as an Israeli, this year, you're getting ready to come to Paris to compete. I want to talk about what went on there, but you experienced something that Israelis in general and Jews in specific have been experiencing, well, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Hatred, anti-Semitism, and of course, the irony is that you're not even Jewish.
Yeah.
Um, Tell us about that. What happened, and how did that? Well, I'd like to unpack whatever you're able to tell in terms of
Yeah.
where how that affected the Israeli team this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm honored to have been able to experience everything my, fellow Jewish Israeli teammates were, because I want to be in it with them. And I got a letter from a hate group, terrorist group, before I came to Paris, pretty much threatening my life, threatening, if I step out of an airplane to France or walk on the streets, they run the streets and run all of it, and blood will run through the streets, just like in Munich, um, and named me personally. So me and I believe 14 or 16 other Israelis got that letter, and then a few got like their obituaries sent to them. So that was definitely eye opening, and I had to really just pray and rely on my faith to, keep me strong. I am a strong person, but I've never dealt with something like that, so it definitely um, tested my personal strength. The security that we had the minute I got into France, we were with armed guards all day, every day. We could only go from the venue to the village. In the Olympic Village, it actually felt, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest, because we had had a meeting um, a month or so before the games with a psychologist preparing us for what could happen. And, if we, get confronted by other athletes or whatever, we need to, take the high road and all the things. And so I was prepared for people to be spitting on us and yelling at us and all of these things. And I have to tell you, it was the complete opposite. I don't know if it was because of our sport or what, but in the village, I never once had any negative experience. I actually had very positive experiences, people trading pins with us. Um, Outside of the village, the minute we would walk, like if we were leaving the village to go to the venue, our guards were there waiting for us in our compound, which was a compound. We didn't have any Israeli flags on the building we were staying in. You needed a code to get in to our building. I mean, like bars, like you're in a prison.
And that was
Code to
only
get
for
in,
Israelis?
only Israelis. Everyone else was normal.
That's sick. I mean,
Yeah,
it's great, but it's sick.
it's sick. So we had to go through, yeah, so code to get into the our locked area, and then turn left. You go again, a door that you have to be buzzed into, and again you go through facial recognition. Once you get through that, you go through a body scanner, and then there's the guard sitting with cameras, video screens, because there's cameras literally on every street around our entire building that they're watching 24/7. And then you go in through a small, like little, you turn left, and the elevator's right there. So it was highly secured. Like nobody was getting in there. And then our building that they put us in had like the metal, like we had a balcony, but to close the windows, like you had normal doors, but then you had metal, like if you wanted, you didn't
Oh,
have to, but you had like metal enclosures as well, to just fully be closed in. So and then the minute we stepped out of the Olympic Village, we had obviously all of our guards. We would ride the bus because we had our specific equestrian, like each discipline, each each sport has their
Yeah.
own bus to go to the venue. So our guards, two or three of them would ride on the bus with us. And then we had police escorts that would always follow us or be in front of us as well as behind us, with their sirens and all the things. The minute we got to the horse venue, we were shadowed the whole time with between 5 to 6 body armed security guards all day, every day.
That's
Follow
so
us
so
to the
the
bathroom.
so
Yeah.
the security team was arguably many times larger than the Olympic team itself.
Yeah, there's 4 of us, and there was no less than 5 security guards with us all day, every day.
But did you feel unsafe anytime at all, or concerned? Did you have to actively get that out of your mind as you were going in to compete?
No, that was another part I think I skipped over. But in the village, I felt like all the athletes, like I didn't have the feeling of being unsafe. And in the village, we weren't shadowed. I mean, maybe we were, and we were told that we just won't notice them. So very possible that our
Yeah.
Mossad agents were there and I just didn't notice. But in the village, I felt extremely safe. We walked around like normal. At
Good.
least it felt that way. Outside of the village, obviously not. But when I went to compete in the ring for the first time on day one for the team, I was expecting, because the stands were completely full. I mean, there was, I don't know, 40,000, 50,000 people there.
Yeah.
It was full. I was expecting boos because they said to expect it. Um, when they announced my name, I think the whole stands erupted in
Wow.
applause and cheering
That's great.
and Israeli flags. And I got emotional.
I'll
Like
bet.
even before I started jumping, I got emotional. And I had a really good round and we made it into the finals. And when I finished my round, people cheering. And I have to tell you, I was being bombarded by people wanting to take my picture and shake my hand and
Wow. That's so nice,
congratulate
Ashlee.
me. And it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And it just inspired me and just made me feel like, you know, there are haters, obviously. There are the misinformed people in the States that think free Palestine from the river to the sea is what they should be backing, which to me is just very sad. Because they're very uneducated or they've been, brainwashed by the propaganda.
To those the Israel haters, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're misinformed. What's your message
Yeah.
to them? What if someone's watching, or somebody who doesn't know, but just
Yeah.
think Ashley's a really cool novel woman who's a great athlete and blessed in so many ways. But what's your message to tell to for people to understand what's the reality?
I think that the media pushes what they want people to believe and they don't see the truth of what's really going on. Um, I would say read the Bible because Israel has been around for thousands and thousands of years and the promised land to the Jews for, so long, since the 40 years in the desert and all of the things. So the whole that Israel just came about not that long ago is just not factual. Um, I also feel that if you really look at Israel, they have Arabs and Palestinians and Muslims and Christians and everyone. It's a melting pot, and they all coexist together. And the Arabs hold positions of power in government in Israel. Um, they're not ethnically cleansing. I've heard this term about them ethnically cleansing Gaza and Palestine and all of these things, and it's just not. It's not the case. The problem is not the Palestinians versus the Jews or the Israelis. It's the terrorist organizations
Excellent.
against the Jews and actually everybody. I heard I don't remember who said it, but Israel's just the beginning. Like they don't want to stop at Israel. They want to come for America. They want to come for any country that isn't Muslim and isn't them. And they want to eradicate us. And another, you know, quote I'd heard from someone a few times is, if if they laid down their if they gave up the hostages and laid down their arms, like there would be peace. If the Jews did that, they would literally slaughter all of the Israelis. Like it just they people don't understand that it's something that they're ingrained, like they teach this. They teach to hate. The radicals. I'm not talking about, you know, Muslims and Arabs that aren't radicalized, but the radicals who are backed by billionaires in Iran and you know these terrible people. There's not. It's a smaller group, but they are very powerful,
Yeah.
and they want death to Christians and Jews and all of people who aren't them. And because Israel is God's country, that is why Israel is so wanted, because they want to kill God. They want to kill Jesus. That's it's just a spiritual warfare. That's when people are like, why is this happening? I was like, because it's spiritual. It's not so, I mean, it's simple in my eyes because it's between the devil and God, and the devil rules the earth right now, and that's just the way it is until Jesus comes back. But when people don't believe that, they think like, why is this happening, and all of these things, and I it's sad. I look at it and it's very sad for me because I love all of them. Like nobody's sitting here going, I want Palestinians to be hurt, or I want the Jews to be hurt. Like it would be beautiful if we could all just realize who our common enemy is and try to
Right.
take that person out, or that group out together.
Well, I shared
But
with you before we went on, right? Late last week before Shabbat, I guess, or maybe whenever we
mhm,
were chatting, I shared with you my peace plan, which is basically
yeah,
that.
it's
Uh,
beautiful.
and anyone who wants to know more about the solution for peace in Gaza can go to the website solutionforpeaceingaza.com. Okay, wow, Ashley, there's so much. I feel like we're old friends.
Yeah, it's
And I'm
great.
really enjoying this. I look forward to doing this in person one day. And I have
Yeah.
to say, I didn't mention our mutual friend. I'm always careful on people's privacy, but our mutual friend Melissa,
Yeah, Melissa.
who introduced us. So shout out and thanks to Melissa
Yeah,
for
she's
that.
awesome.
She is. Actually, so it's funny, the friend who was just here, who I alluded to, speaking of Israel as her spiritual homeland, is our mutual friend Marzi, who maybe you've heard of. She was born in Iran, became a Christian in Iran,
Oh, I love
and
that.
was sentenced to death
Oh
because
my
she became a
gosh.
Christian. And she
Yeah,
was just here because we're working on a really cool project to bring Christians to participate in the olive harvest this fall.
that's
As
beautiful.
symbolic economically, because so much of the agricultural industry has been damaged because of the war, but also um, not spiritually. Spiritually, yes. Symbolically, because here I am, Jonathan, the Orthodox Jew, quoting Romans 11, but talking about the significance of the root supporting the branch, and the root and the tree that is spoken of is the olive tree, and everything, and all the oil for anointing, and everything that we're talking about biblically is olive oil. So we're going to be
Love it.
doing big things. And Melissa, it's funny how these things come together.
Yeah.
Our program is called properly Root and Branch. Actually, you just went to an area that I want to potentially finish with. This week, it's it's heartbreaking for me. It's so hard. 10 months, we're 10 months into war.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, as we have this conversation, Ariel Bibas, who is turning 5 years old, he's the big one of the two redhead boys that were kidnapped.
Yeah.
And a week and a half ago, I stood in front of their house with all of their toys, exactly as, and you have a little child as well. You
Yeah.
can relate. All of their toys on the front lawn, just like they were
Ugh,
when they
that's
were all
so sad.
kidnapped 10 months ago. It's just so heartbreaking. And now you're in Paris with the rest of the Israeli team, having
Mhm.
to deal with security issues that no one's ever dealt with in history. Forget that you're the first, I've dubbed you the first Israeli Christian to
Yeah, yeah.
compete, but also imminently waiting for some mega attack, which I've referred to. I told you right before we began speaking that I'm writing an article that'll be out soon called Armageddon Notwithstanding.
Yeah.
Um, What's impacted you, Ashlee, Christian Israeli, Olympian or not, in the last 10 months with the war?
Oof. Just how fallen our world is. I think it's just so heartbreaking that people can do the things that they can do, but then I just turn it back and go, they're not, they're demons. Like people might think I'm crazy, but I believe in my faith 110%. And I believe that it's all demonic. It's like the Holocaust. I mean, it's
Oh,
mind blowing. I think about how we're in the 21st century and we're dealing with this kind of anti-Semitism and hatred and I just it I don't know. I don't know how on one hand people can be saying, we have to be so accepting of all of these things and include everybody and love and then have the same people turning around and spewing hatred and from the river to the sea. I'm also really disappointed in America's response because we're supposed to be a huge ally to Israel. And I feel like they're saying it, but they're not backing their words up with action.
is there any one thing in the course of the last um 10 months that just stands out as that red flag for you in terms of America's lack of response and support of Israel?
Yeah, that we still have hostages there. Like that they
Excellent.
still they how do we have hostages there still? And 5 Americans. That's that's unbelievable to me.
If the US had truly wanted all of the hostages free and put its money where its mouth is, the United States has the influence with Qatar to say there will be severe consequences for you as a country, and it won't be Israel taking out the terrorists that are living in seven-star hotels in Qatar, but it'll be the US. Excellent. I'm glad you mentioned that. Um,
Yeah, it's just sim I think people try to make it more complicated too. I think for me it's very simple.
yeah.
And I go back to the whole demonic everything. It's not a joke. I mean, I laugh because it's like I'm saying it again, but I believe it in my gut that it's just demons. They're
Yeah.
just freaking that's their plan is to blow up the world pretty much.
Really fascinating. I'm super excited to have connected with you and let you share to the whole world as you are proudly waving the blue and white flag as you
Yes.
do. Is there anything that's on your heart that or that we didn't cover that you just want to share with everybody?
I think just praying for obviously the release of the hostages and for their families and for some peace and understanding, maybe that the scales fall from their eyes and they can see Israel for actually what it really is and for the terrorist organizations for what they really are and realize that this is not a battle between, Gaza or Palestinians and Israelis, that it's a battle between, these sick terrorists and everybody else. Yeah, and come together and just realize that love should conquer all at the end of the day with the Lord and
You may not live here, but just simply from that answer, you're clearly inseparably one of us, and I'm so grateful and proud.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Ashley, for
you.
making time today.